The alien girl's name was Lyra. She wasn't like the humans she had observed from afar. Her skin shimmered faintly under sunlight, her eyes glowed softly in hues of green and blue, and her hair seemed to float as if caught in an invisible breeze. Her people called themselves the Nexians, a race that thrived on harmony with nature but struggled with technology. They were explorers, not conquerors, which is why Lyra found herself stranded on Earth after her small ship malfunctioned during a routine survey mission. It was night when Lyra crash-landed near a dense forest outside a human military base. The impact sent shockwaves through the trees, scattering leaves and startling nocturnal creatures. Smoke billowed from the wreckage as Lyra stumbled out, clutching her side where sharp pain throbbed relentlessly. Her suit, designed for interstellar travel, was torn and useless now. She looked around, wide-eyed, taking in the unfamiliar terrain. Lyra knew she needed help, but she also knew better than to approach humans directly. From what she'd seen in their broadcasts, they weren't exactly welcoming to outsiders. Still, she couldn't stay hidden forever. Her injuries were severe, and without proper care, she wouldn't survive long enough to repair her ship or call for rescue. As dawn broke, Lyra ventured cautiously toward the edge of the forest. Through the trees, she could see the sprawling compound of the military base, a maze of concrete buildings, barbed wire fences, and armed guards patrolling the perimeter. It looked cold and intimidating, yet it was her only chance at survival. Her first mistake came when she stepped into a puddle of mud. The squelching sound alerted a nearby guard who immediately turned his flashlight in her direction. Lyra froze, her glowing eyes betraying her presence. Before the guard could shout, she darted back into the shadows, heart pounding. But she hadn't been quick enough. The humans had seen her, or at least glimpsed something unusual, and curiosity would drive them to investigate further. Later that morning, soldiers arrived at the crash site. Among them was Captain Reed, a gruff man in his late 30s with a no-nonsense attitude and years of experience hunting down anomalies. He led the team as they combed through the wreckage, collecting debris and scanning the area for signs of life. What caught his attention most was a strange vial lying partially buried in the dirt. Inside it was a silvery liquid that shimmered unnaturally even in the dim light. "This doesn't look like anything we've got," muttered one of the soldiers, holding up the vial for inspection. Captain Reed frowned. "Bag it. We'll analyze it back at the lab." Unbeknownst to them, Lyra had been watching from a safe distance. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, and dehydration made her head spin. Desperation clouded her judgment. When the soldiers left, she crept closer to the site, hoping to scavenge anything useful. That's when she spotted another vial identical to the one they had taken, except this one still lay untouched among the wreckage. Thinking it might be water or some form of sustenance, Lyra grabbed it and drank its contents before realizing her error. At first, nothing happened. Then, a burning sensation spread through her veins, starting from her throat and radiating outward until every nerve ending screamed in agony. Lyra collapsed, clutching her chest as her body convulsed violently. Colors exploded behind her closed eyelids, and her mind filled with chaotic images, flashes of battles, weapons firing, explosions tearing apart landscapes. It felt like her very essence was being rewritten at a molecular level. When the torment finally subsided, Lyra opened her eyes to find herself changed. Her senses were sharper, her reflexes faster, and her strength amplified beyond belief. She flexed her fingers experimentally, feeling power coursing through her limbs. Whatever she had consumed had transformed her, but into what? And more importantly, how would the humans react if they discovered what she had become? Little did Lyra know, the serum she accidentally ingested was part of a classified military experiment designed to create super soldiers capable of extraordinary feats. Now, she was both a test subject and a potential threat, one that the humans would stop at nothing to capture and study. Lyra's transformation left her reeling, both physically and mentally. Her body felt foreign yet exhilarating, like a finely tuned instrument she wasn't sure how to play. She crouched low in the shadows of the forest, trying to steady her breathing as waves of unfamiliar sensations coursed through her. Every rustle of leaves, every distant hum of machinery, seemed amplified tenfold. Even the air carried scents she'd never noticed before, metallic odors from the base, earthy tones of the forest, and something sharper, almost electric. Her mind raced with questions. What had happened to her? Was this permanent? And why did fragments of those chaotic images, the battles, the explosions, linger in her thoughts as if they were memories? Before she could process any answers, a sharp crack echoed through the trees. Lyra's head snapped toward the sound just as a beam of light pierced the darkness. Soldiers emerged from the tree-line, their weapons drawn and flashlights scanning the area. They hadn't seen her yet, but it wouldn't take long. Lyra instinctively pressed herself against the trunk of a tree, her newfound agility allowing her to move silently despite her trembling limbs. Captain Reed led the group, his sharp eyes scanning the ground for tracks or disturbances. He stopped abruptly when he spotted drag marks leading deeper into the woods. "Spread out," he ordered gruffly. "Whatever it is, it's wounded. Don't let it escape." Lyra clenched her fists, panic rising in her chest. She knew running would only draw more attention, but staying put meant certain capture. Her alien instincts screamed at her to flee, while the strange new power inside her urged her to fight. For a moment she hesitated, torn between survival and curiosity about what she was now capable of. A twig snapped beneath her foot, betraying her position. One of the soldiers spun around, his flashlight landing squarely on her face. Lyra froze, her glowing eyes meeting his wide stare. Then chaos erupted. "Target sighted!" the soldier shouted, raising his weapon. The others followed suit, surrounding her in seconds. Lyra's heart pounded as adrenaline surged through her veins. Without thinking, she leapt high into the air, clearing the heads of the startled soldiers with ease. She landed gracefully several feet away, her movements fluid and precise, a stark contrast to the clumsy stumbles she'd been moments earlier. The soldiers fired warning shots, but Lyra dodged them effortlessly, her heightened reflexes making the bullets seem slow and predictable. She darted between trees, weaving through the forest like a phantom. Despite her speed, however, she couldn't outrun the coordinated pursuit. More soldiers joined the chase, their shouts echoing through the night. Captain Reed watched the spectacle unfold with growing unease. This wasn't some ordinary creature. It was intelligent, strategic, and far stronger than anything they'd encountered before. "Don't kill it!" he barked into his radio. "We need it alive!" As Lyra fled, her enhanced senses picked up snippets of conversation among the soldiers. Fragments of words reached her ears: experiment, serum, containment. A cold realization settled over her. Whatever she had consumed wasn't just a random vial. It was part of their experiments. They weren't chasing her because she was dangerous. They were hunting her because she was valuable. Anger flared within her, mixing with fear and confusion. How dare they turn her into this without consent? How dare they treat her like an object to be captured and studied? She may have been an explorer once, but now she was something else entirely, a hybrid caught between two worlds, neither fully human nor wholly Nexian anymore. Determined not to let them catch her, Lyra pushed herself harder, testing the limits of her new abilities. She scaled a towering oak in seconds, perching on a branch high above the soldiers. From her vantage point, she surveyed the scene below. Dozens of men combed the forest, their flashlights cutting through the darkness like searchlights. Helicopters circled overhead, their rotors slicing through the air with deafening roars. For a brief moment, Lyra considered surrender. Perhaps she could reason with them, explain who she was and what had happened. But then she remembered the look in Captain Reed's eyes, cold, calculating, devoid of compassion. These humans saw her as a specimen, not a person. Surrender meant imprisonment, maybe even dissection. No, she decided. She would fight. With renewed determination, Lyra sprang into action. Using her incredible strength, she tore a thick branch from the tree and hurled it toward one of the helicopters. The makeshift projectile struck true, damaging the rotor blades and sending the chopper spiraling downward. The resulting explosion lit up the sky, momentarily blinding the soldiers below. Chaos ensued as the remaining helicopters scrambled to regroup. Taking advantage of the distraction, Lyra sprinted deeper into the forest, her muscles burning with exertion but refusing to give out. She could hear shouts behind her, orders being barked into radios, boots pounding against the ground. They were relentless, but so was she. Eventually, Lyra reached a river that cut through the forest like a silver ribbon under the moonlight. She paused at the edge, panting heavily. Water splashed against rocks, creating a soothing melody that clashed with the cacophony of pursuit. Beyond the river lay dense wilderness, offering potential refuge, but crossing it meant exposing herself briefly. She didn't have time to hesitate. With a running start, Lyra launched herself across the water, her powerful legs propelling her farther than she thought possible. She landed on the opposite bank with a soft thud, disappearing into the shadows of the trees just as the first wave of soldiers arrived at the riverbank. Captain Reed arrived moments later, his expression unreadable as he scanned the area. "It's fast," he muttered to himself, gripping his rifle tightly. "Faster than we anticipated." Turning to his team, he issued new orders. "Set up perimeter traps. If it doubles back, we'll be ready." Unbeknownst to him, Lyra was already miles away, moving deeper into the wilderness. Exhaustion weighed heavily on her, but she forced herself to keep going. She needed shelter, time to think, and most importantly, a plan. She couldn't stay hidden forever, not with an entire military force hunting her. But perhaps there was another way, one that involved turning their own experiment against them. The forest eventually gave way to rolling hills dotted with abandoned structures, a ghost town left behind by humanity's relentless march forward. Lyra slowed her pace as she entered this desolate landscape, her glowing eyes scanning the decrepit buildings for signs of safety. Her body still thrummed with energy from the serum, but fatigue was beginning to creep in. Even her newfound strength had limits. She found refuge in an old barn, its wooden walls warped and weathered by time. Inside, the air smelled of hay and rusted metal, and sunlight filtered through cracks in the roof, casting long shadows across the dusty floor. It wasn't ideal, but it would do for now. Lyra collapsed onto a pile of straw, her chest heaving as she tried to steady her breathing. She needed rest, but sleep felt impossible with the weight of everything pressing down on her. Her thoughts drifted back to the serum, the alien power coursing through her veins. What exactly had they created? From what little she'd overheard during the chase, it seemed like the humans had been experimenting with something far beyond their understanding. Had they intended to create soldiers capable of superhuman feats? Or was there more to it, something darker? As she lay there, staring at the beams above her, Lyra noticed faint whispers echoing in her mind. At first, she thought it was exhaustion playing tricks on her, but then she realized it wasn't her imagination. The serum wasn't just altering her physically, it was changing her mentally too. Fragments of knowledge, emotions, even fleeting memories that weren't hers began surfacing unbidden. She saw flashes of battlefields, heard screams of pain and triumph, felt the cold resolve of soldiers trained to obey without question. It terrified her. Was she losing herself to whatever the humans had injected into that vial? Would she become one of them, a weapon stripped of free will? A sudden noise outside jolted her awake. Lyra sat up, her senses on high alert. Someone, or something, was approaching. She moved silently to the edge of the barn, peering out through a crack in the wall. To her surprise, it wasn't a soldier or a helicopter, it was a man. He looked ordinary enough, dressed in worn jeans and a leather jacket, his face partially obscured by the brim of a hat. He carried no weapon, only a backpack slung over one shoulder. For a moment, Lyra considered staying hidden, but something about him made her pause. There was a calmness to his movements, an absence of urgency that set him apart from the frantic huntsman who had chased her earlier. Curiosity got the better of her. Stepping cautiously into view, Lyra revealed herself, her shimmering skin catching the dim light. The man stopped mid-step, his eyes widening slightly before narrowing in cautious appraisal. "You're not from around here," he said finally, his voice low and steady. It wasn't a question. Lyra hesitated, unsure whether to trust him. But something in his tone, a lack of malice or fear, encouraged her to respond. No, she admitted softly, her accent carrying traces of Nexian inflections unfamiliar to human ears. The man nodded slowly, as if he'd expected nothing less. I figured. You've got quite the welcoming committee looking for you. They want me captured, Lyra replied, her voice tinged with bitterness. They see me as an experiment. The man studied her for a moment longer before speaking again. Names are important where I come from. Mine's Eli. Lyra, she said after a pause, deciding to offer her name in return. Trusting strangers went against every instinct she had, but she couldn't deny the relief that came with hearing a friendly voice, even if she didn't fully understand why he seemed so unfazed by her presence. Eli tilted his head, his expression thoughtful. So, Lyra, care to tell me how you ended up outrunning half the military? She sighed, realizing she owed him some explanation. In halting sentences, she recounted her crash landing, the accidental ingestion of the serum, and the subsequent chase. As she spoke, Eli listened intently, occasionally nodding but never interrupting. When she finished, he leaned against the barn door, crossing his arms. That stuff you drank, it's called Project Aegis. Heard rumors about it once. Supposed to make people stronger, faster, smarter. Guess they weren't kidding. His tone was dry, almost amused, but there was an underlying tension that suggested he knew more than he let on. What do you know about it? Lyra asked sharply, stepping closer. Eli shrugged. Enough to stay clear of it. They've been working on it for years, testing it on volunteers, and sometimes not-so-voluntary subjects. If they catch you, they'll lock you up in some lab and pick you apart piece by piece. Lyra shuddered at the thought, her fists clenching involuntarily. Then I can't let them catch me. No, you can't, Eli agreed. But running won't solve your problem either. Not when they have drones, satellites, and who knows what else tracking you. Lyra frowned, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. What am I supposed to do, then? Eli smirked faintly, reaching into his backpack. That depends. Are you willing to fight fire with fire? He pulled out a small device, a sleek black box with blinking lights and a screen displaying coordinates. Lyra stared at it, confused. What is that? This, Eli said, tapping the device, is a map to their research facility, where they developed Project Aegis. If you really want answers, and maybe a way to fix yourself, you need to go straight to the source. Lyra's heart raced. Walking into the lion's den sounded insane, but deep down, she knew he was right. Running wouldn't end this. She needed to confront the people responsible for turning her life upside down. Still, doubt lingered. Why are you helping me? Eli's smile faded, replaced by a look of quiet determination. Because I've seen what happens when experiments like this get out of hand. And because sometimes the best way to stop monsters is to create one of your own. His words hung heavy in the air, leaving Lyra to weigh her options. Could she trust him? Did she have any other choice? The decision weighed heavily on Lyra as she and Eli prepared for their journey to the research facility. Trusting a human, even one as enigmatic as Eli, felt like stepping into uncharted territory. Yet something about him resonated with her. Perhaps it was his calm demeanor or the fact that he didn't view her as a threat but as someone in need of help. Whatever it was, Lyra knew she couldn't face this alone. Eli explained that the facility wasn't far, about a day's travel through rugged terrain, but getting inside would be another challenge entirely. It's heavily guarded, he warned, spreading out a crude map on the barn floor. Cameras, motion sensors, armed patrols. Breaking in won't be easy. Lyra nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. She flexed her fingers absently, feeling the latent power coursing through her veins. If they could get past the guards, maybe her newfound abilities could tip the scales in their favor. But first, they needed a plan. We'll go at night, Eli suggested. Less activity, fewer eyes watching. Plus, I've got some tricks up my sleeve. Tricks? Lyra asked, raising an eyebrow. Eli grinned mischievously, pulling a small gadget from his backpack. It looked like a handheld device with wires and blinking lights. EMP generator. Knocks out electronics within a limited radius. Should give us enough time to slip inside undetected. Lyra studied the device skeptically. And you're sure this will work? It's worked before, Eli replied with a shrug. But don't worry, we're not relying solely on tech. You've got your enhancements. He gestured vaguely toward her glowing skin. Use them wisely. As dusk fell, they set off, moving cautiously across the open fields toward the distant silhouette of the facility. The structure loomed large against the horizon, its walls illuminated by floodlights and surrounded by barbed wire fences. Armed guards patrolled the perimeter, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Eli signaled for Lyra to crouch low behind a cluster of rocks. Wait here, he whispered. I'll disable the cameras on the east side. Once I give the signal, make your move. Before Lyra could protest, Eli darted forward, disappearing into the shadows. She watched nervously as he approached the fence, using his EMP generator to short-circuit the nearest security camera. A faint buzz echoed through the air, followed by silence. Moments later, Eli reappeared, motioning for her to follow. Lyra sprang into action, her movements swift and silent thanks to her enhanced agility. Together they slipped through the gap in the fence and crept closer to the building. Inside, the facility was a labyrinth of sterile hallways and locked doors. Eli led the way, consulting the map on his device while Lyra kept watch for any signs of trouble. They encountered a few guards along the way, but Lyra's speed allowed her to incapacitate them quietly before they could raise the alarm. Finally, they reached what appeared to be the heart of the operation, a secure lab filled with equipment, vials of shimmering liquid, and monitors displaying complex data streams. Lyra froze as she scanned the room, her heart sinking at the sight of countless experiments laid bare before her. This was where they had created Project Aegis, and possibly altered her forever. This is it, Eli said softly, breaking the silence. Start looking for anything that might explain what happened to you. Files, notes, anything. Lyra nodded, beginning her search. Her hands trembled slightly as she sifted through stacks of papers and digital files stored on secured terminals. Most of it was technical jargon she barely understood, but fragments began to piece together in her mind. The serum hadn't just enhanced physical capabilities. It had rewritten DNA, blending human and synthetic elements to create something entirely new. She found mention of failed test subjects, humans who hadn't survived the process, and grim reports detailing the instability of the formula. One document caught her eye, Subject X-27, Successful Integration. Beneath it was a blurry image of a figure whose features seemed eerily familiar. That's me, Lyra whispered, realization dawning. Somehow, the serum had bonded perfectly with her alien biology, making her the first successful hybrid. But at what cost? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps echoing down the hallway. We've got company! Eli hissed, grabbing a nearby fire extinguisher as a makeshift weapon. Lyra turned toward the door, her body tensing as adrenaline surged through her. She recognized the voice barking orders outside. It was Captain Reed. He'd found them. Get ready, Eli muttered, positioning himself beside the door. When they come in, we hit hard and fast. Lyra nodded, her glowing eyes narrowing with determination. As the door burst open and soldiers poured in, weapons raised, Lyra moved like lightning. She disarmed the first guard with ease, sending him sprawling to the ground. Another lunged at her, but she sidestepped effortlessly, delivering a blow that knocked him unconscious. Eli held his own, swinging the fire extinguisher with surprising precision. Between the two of them, they managed to subdue most of the intruders, though reinforcements quickly arrived. Just as things started to look dire, Lyra spotted a control panel near the back of the lab. Without hesitation, she sprinted toward it, smashing the emergency shutdown button with her fist. Alarms blared throughout the facility as lights flickered and machinery powered down. In the chaos, Eli grabbed Lyra's arm. Now's our chance! Let's move! They bolted through the confusion, retracing their steps toward the exit. Behind them, Captain Reed shouted orders, his voice laced with fury. Don't let them escape! Reaching the outer fence, Lyra paused, glancing back at the facility bathed in red light. For a moment, she considered destroying everything, obliterating the source of her torment once and for all. But deep down, she knew vengeance wouldn't undo what had been done to her. Come on, Eli urged, tugging at her arm. We can figure out the rest later. With a final glance at the burning building, Lyra followed him into the night, her heart heavy but resolute. Whatever came next, she vowed to take control of her fate, not as a victim, but as a survivor. The night air was cool against Lyra's skin as she and Eli fled the facility, their footsteps crunching softly over gravel and dry leaves. Behind them, the compound burned brightly, its alarms still blaring in the distance. Flames licked at the windows of the lab, consuming years of classified research, and perhaps the only answers Lyra might have found about herself. Eli glanced back at the inferno, his expression unreadable. That should keep them busy for a while. For now, Lyra replied grimly, her glowing eyes reflecting the firelight. She felt a strange mix of relief and dread. They had escaped, yes, but she knew this wasn't over. Captain Reed wouldn't stop hunting her, not after what she'd done to his precious project. And even if he did, there were others like him, people who saw her not as a person but as a weapon or an experiment gone wrong. As they reached the edge of the forest, Eli slowed his pace, turning to face her. You okay? Lyra hesitated, unsure how to answer. Physically, she felt stronger than ever, her enhanced abilities humming beneath her skin like a second heartbeat. But mentally? Emotionally? She was a storm of conflicting thoughts and fears. I don't know, she admitted finally. What happens next? Where do I go from here? Eli sighed, leaning against a tree. His hat cast a shadow over his face, hiding his expression. That depends on you. You've got power now, more than most humans could dream of. What you do with it is up to you. Lyra frowned, crossing her arms. Power isn't freedom. It's just another way for people to control me. Not necessarily, Eli countered. You can use it to fight back. To protect yourself, and maybe others like you. Others? Lyra echoed, startled. There are more hybrids. Eli shrugged. Probably. If they created one successful subject, they'll try again. Maybe they already have. The thought sent a chill down Lyra's spine. She hadn't considered that she might not be alone, that somewhere out there, others like her could exist. People who had been experimented on, altered, turned into something neither fully human nor alien. The idea filled her with both hope and unease. Could she find them? Would they want to be found? Before she could dwell further, a sudden noise broke the silence, a low hum that seemed to vibrate through the ground beneath their feet. Both Lyra and Eli froze, exchanging wary glances. What is that? Lyra whispered, her senses prickling with alarm. Eli's jaw tightened as he scanned the horizon. Sounds like drones. They're searching for us. Sure enough, moments later, several small unmanned aircraft appeared above the treetops, their lights scanning the area systematically. Lyra cursed under her breath, her heart pounding. There was no way they could outrun those machines. They were too fast, too relentless. We need cover, Eli said urgently, grabbing her arm. Follow me. He led her deeper into the forest, weaving between trees and ducking under branches until they reached a narrow ravine hidden by thick underbrush. They dropped into the shallow trench, pressing themselves flat against the damp earth as the drones passed overhead. For several tense minutes, they lay there, listening to the mechanical whirring fade into the distance. When the coast seemed clear, Eli exhaled sharply, brushing dirt off his jacket. Close call. Too close, Lyra muttered, sitting up. Her mind raced with possibilities. How long could they keep running? Sooner or later, the military would catch up. And when they did, she doubted they'd show mercy. There's another option, Eli said suddenly, his voice low but firm. We strike first. Lyra blinked, startled. What do you mean? I mean we take the fight to them, he explained, his tone growing more intense. They think you're just some runaway experiment, scared and alone. But you're not. You're powerful, smart, and capable of things they can't even imagine. If we hit them where it hurts, their resources, their leadership, we can buy ourselves time. Maybe even allies. Lyra stared at him, torn between admiration and skepticism. And then what? Start a war? No, Eli replied firmly. A rebellion. Something bigger than us. Something that says no one gets to play God with lives, not theirs, not ours. His words struck a chord deep within her. For so long, Lyra had felt powerless, caught between worlds and identities. Now, for the first time, she saw a glimmer of purpose, a chance to reclaim her agency and stand against those who sought to exploit her. But it wouldn't be easy. She would have to embrace the changes wrought by the serum, channel its gifts into something meaningful. More importantly, she would have to trust, not just Eli, but herself. All right, she said finally, rising to her feet. Tell me your plan. Eli grinned, though there was no humor in it, only determination. First, we gather intel. Find out who's pulling the strings behind Project Aegis. Then, we hit them hard enough to make sure they never forget us. Lyra nodded, resolve hardening in her chest. Whatever came next, she vowed to face it head on. She wasn't just a victim anymore. She was a survivor. And survivors didn't wait for fate, they made their own. The next few days passed in a blur of movement and strategy. Lyra and Eli traveled light, sticking to the shadows as they pieced together information about Project Aegis. They scavenged supplies from abandoned outposts, hacked into unsecured military networks using Eli's gadgets, and listened intently to intercepted radio transmissions. Slowly but surely, a clearer picture began to emerge. Project Aegis wasn't just some isolated experiment, it was part of something much larger. The serum Lyra had consumed was only one component of a global initiative known as Operation Phoenix. Its goal? To create an army of supersoldiers capable of maintaining dominance over both Earth and any potential extraterrestrial threats. Governments weren't content with merely defending themselves. They wanted to conquer, expand, and control. At the heart of it all was a shadowy figure known only as Director Kane. Few people had seen him, and fewer still knew his true identity. But his influence loomed large, orchestrating every aspect of Operation Phoenix from behind layers of secrecy and bureaucracy. Taking him down wouldn't be easy, but it would cripple the entire operation if they succeeded. Eli spread out their findings on a makeshift table inside another abandoned building, a crumbling gas station tucked away in the middle of nowhere. Maps, documents, and screenshots covered the surface, each piece connecting the dots between facilities, supply lines, and key personnel. This is our shot, Eli said, tapping a red circle on one of the maps. It marked a massive weapons depot located deep within a mountain range. If we hit this place, we cut off their access to critical resources. Ammo, tech, even prototypes of new serums. Without it, they'll be scrambling to regroup. Lyra studied the map carefully, her glowing eyes tracing the routes leading to the depot. It's heavily fortified, she noted grimly. Even with my abilities, getting in won't be easy. That's why we're not going in alone, Eli replied with a sly smile. He pulled out a small device, a communicator he'd salvaged earlier, and pressed a button. Static crackled for a moment before a voice responded. Who is this? The voice demanded, gruff and wary. It's me, Eli answered calmly. We need your help. There was a pause, followed by a low chuckle. You've got guts calling me, kid. What makes you think I give a damn? Because this isn't just about us anymore, Eli shot back. They're coming for everyone who doesn't fit their perfect little mold. You want to sit back and let them win? Another pause, longer this time. Then, fine. Where are you? Eli exchanged a glance with Lyra before giving the caller their location. Within hours, reinforcements arrived, a ragtag group of individuals who, like Lyra, had been touched by humanity's experiments. There was Mara, a former test subject whose body now emitted bioelectric shocks, Rook, a towering man with cybernetic limbs and a penchant for explosives, and Tessa, a hacker extraordinaire who could infiltrate systems faster than anyone Lyra had ever met. Each of them carried scars, physical, emotional, or both, but they shared a common purpose: survival and revenge. As the team gathered around the table, Eli laid out the plan. We hit the depot at dawn. Tessa will disable their security systems remotely while Mara and Rook breach the perimeter. Lyra and I will go in through the main entrance, creating enough chaos to draw their attention away from the others. And what happens after that? Mara asked, her voice tinged with skepticism. We destroy everything, Lyra said firmly, her tone leaving no room for argument. Burn it all. Make sure they can't rebuild. The group nodded, their expressions hardening with resolve. For once, Lyra didn't feel like an outsider looking in. These people understood her pain, her anger, her determination to fight back. Together, they were stronger, not just individually, but as a unit. Dawn broke over the mountains, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold. The team moved silently through the rocky terrain, their breaths visible in the crisp morning air. As they approached the depot, tension crackled among them like static electricity. Tessa crouched behind a boulder, her fingers flying across a portable keyboard. Security's down, she whispered into her headset. You've got 10 minutes before backup generators kick in. Copy that, Eli replied, signaling for the others to move forward. Lyra led the charge, her enhanced speed allowing her to dart between guards without being seen. She took them down swiftly, her movements precise and efficient. Inside the facility, alarms blared as explosions rocked the outer walls, Rook's handiwork. Chaos reigned supreme. Captain Reed appeared moments later, his face twisted with fury. Find them! He barked at his men, his rifle raised. But before he could issue another order, Lyra stepped into view, her glowing eyes locking onto his. You shouldn't have come after me, she said coldly, her voice echoing through the corridor. Reed sneered, leveling his weapon at her. You're nothing but a failed experiment. We'll put you down like the animal you are. Lyra didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled, a fierce, predatory grin that sent chills down Reed's spine. With a single leap, she closed the distance between them, disarming him effortlessly. Before he could react, she pinned him to the ground, her strength overwhelming. Maybe I'm not the failure, she growled, leaning close. Maybe you are, for thinking you could play God and get away with it. She left him there, unconscious but alive, as flames engulfed the depot behind her. Outside, the rest of the team regrouped, watching as plumes of smoke rose into the sky. What now? Rook asked, his mechanical arm sparking faintly. Lyra looked at them, her expression resolute. Now we keep fighting. For ourselves. For anyone else they've hurt. This isn't the end, it's just the beginning. And with that, they disappeared into the wilderness, ready to wage war against those who sought to control them.